All right, bro. Well, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. If you guys don't know, this is Robbie Sihota. One of literally, people call you like the GOAT of brown basketball. Is that weird for you?
You know what? I've been around the game quite a long time now. I see a lot of these faces, a lot of the young guys, a lot of the old guys that I grew up playing against. So honestly, man, like it's just a respect thing. Like, you know what? I have so much respect for a lot of the guys that I play against or have played against. It's like, you know, you give respect, you show respect, and that's what basketball is all about at the end of the day, right? And you know, you can't really. I don't really care what somebody else calls me or I call myself. Like I just go. I've just been going out there and hooping and play to the best of my
You've
ability
always been like super humble and chill. Ever since I've known and met you, which is great. Then speaking on the respect part, a lot of people put respect on your name because of like the resume. Can you give the people who don't know who Robbie Sihota is just like an idea or glimpse into like your professional basketball resume?
Yeah, like honestly, man, like growing up, it's crazy. Like you would have never thought like you're gonna play where you play. Like growing up as a kid, like from Calgary, Canada, the northeast of Calgary, like you just play for the love of the game. To be honest, like I grew up. I played. Well, I didn't play. I lived in India for 3 years when I was younger too. So like my story is like all over the place. Like moved to Calgary. I lived in Toronto for a little bit, and then obviously I settled in Calgary. But yeah, just it was all about for like the love of the game. Like I started playing it pretty like I would say later. You know, I wasn't. I think was it grade 6 is when I really got serious. Grade 7 probably. And then yeah, just kept going. Then yeah, you know, after university, had the opportunity to play overseas, and that was where it all started. So yeah, I started in the Netherlands after the University of Calgary. Then after the Netherlands, I played there for a couple of years. I went to Switzerland. After Switzerland, I played in Hungary for a bit. After Hungary, I went to Germany, and then came back
like a
to
Europe
Hungary.
tour.
Yeah. So it was cool, and you know, a brief stint like playing in China a little bit and other spots, but more like you know, a couple months around different places. So,
what was the favorite place for you? If you can go back right now and play.
Yeah, like living wise, for sure, Budapest was like my favorite.
Okay, Budapest, yeah.
That was like the best city. I was looking at it as like almost like the New York of like Europe in a way. Like super cool city, always things to do at night and during the day. Like there's always stuff going on. So it's a pretty lit city.
I don't know if this is the question you can answer, but is there like, have you ever had like a favorite teammate? Like someone you just love sharing the court with?
Oh man, I've never really thought about it. I've had some great teammates, man. It's hard.
Or who are some of the great teammates you've had then maybe?
Like overseas?
Yeah, overseas, yeah.
Yeah, overseas, I would say, like I'm just speaking from the last couple of seasons that I had. Yeah, like I had Jamie Smith was one of my close ones in Switzerland that I had great. He just retired. Yeah, it's hard for me to pinpoint, man. Like I'm trying to go through all my teammates.
That's fine.
So
don't even trip.
Yeah.
What about like the itch for basketball? So I would assume that, you know, obviously you play for a long time, right?
Yeah.
But like the itch never goes away. I don't think it does. I'm sure it gets maybe a little bit less and less because the body changes. But
yeah,
how do you feel about it?
You know what? The itch for me, it's like the love of the game. Like I truly love the game of basketball, and that's why, you know, I in my opinion, I got to the level where I got to because, you know, it wasn't work for me to go in the gym and put in work to be in the gym all the time.
Which
like
is important.
I felt super comfortable, or I just wanted to be in the gym all the time. Like it was kind of it still is therapeutic for me to go in the gym, and like, you know, for a workout, you know, put up shots for like 45 minutes, an hour. That's a workout for me, and that's almost like a mental peace thing for me too. But yeah, like the itch, to be honest, like the itch to play, you know, competitively has definitely changed over time because there's a lot of stuff that comes with like competitive basketball, right? Obviously, there's the nuances, there's like the craziness that comes with it, there's the competitive side of it. You know, there's a lot of organization. You got to treat it like a real like you can't just go in there. A lot of people from the outside, they just think that professional basketball is just like, oh yeah, you just wake up and you just go hoop.
That's
like,
it. Yeah.
There's so much involved. Taking care of your body. Like you spend like, you know, maybe we'll have like 4 hours of practices a day on court. That includes, you know, on shoot arounds, you know, weight room and full practices. Because most of the times in Europe, it was like 2 days. Outside of that, like what are you doing outside of that? Like physio, massage, recovery to get your body right. And as you get older, you know, your body is just it's not the same. And I'm at the age now where I'm turning 36 this year, where I still love playing, but your body tells you certain things that you don't recover the same anymore. It may take you a little bit longer to be in
Yeah,
the
more
same.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, like the itch, to answer your question, yeah, the itch is still there. But it's different now. My perspective's changed a lot too over the
Right.
years.
What does it mean for you to, obviously second year playing for India Rising, right?
Yeah.
But like, what does it mean for you to be able to come and play and represent like the brand, obviously the culture, the people, also being like that guy who's, in my opinion, like, the ultimate pro in a sense, where like that's like who you kind of want to be like in the pro scene.
Yeah, like it's, you know what? It's meant a lot to me. Like this whole thing started from like, we had talked about this earlier. I just think like growing up for me, when I was playing overseas, and especially when I first started playing overseas, there was like there wasn't really anybody there wasn't a lot anyways. I mean, there's very minimal amount of Indian kids in general playing
Yeah.
basketball. But the higher level you go, there's less and less and less. So it's always hard to like relate to guys to a certain extent. Like the one thing I love about this team is that like everybody comes from like, that Indian background. And it may not be obviously, different families, different, different ways of growing up for a lot of these guys in the different cities. But like you can all connect on like one common ground, like especially like how Indian parents are towards like sports, that
Exactly.
stereotype, that
Yeah.
culture stuff. So that is really cool. Like, even talking to like I was talking to like Aryan the other day, and he's 22 now, going into his first pro season.
Right.
But it kind of reminds me of like, this when I was at that age and like what I was looking at. And for me, it was like, if I can like just shed whatever like light I can on like the stuff that I dealt with to help him get through what he needs to get through,
That's huge.
that would be a huge thing, for him, but also for me to see that like, hey man, like, I was able to potentially give some insight into like what this is. Cause a lot of things that I just learned on the fly, and I'm like, man, I didn't know this. I wish somebody told me this, right?
Right. Right.
So it's kind of cool to have that setting. So in that way, it just means a lot for the community of basketball, and like to see where basketball within the community is going to go, and where it has been for the last 20 years, right?
Right. What was the hardest part about being a pro as you're going overseas?
To be honest, like the isolation for sure. Yeah, like
I
I
heard a
think
lot of guys talk about
yeah,
this.
I think you need to be very mentally tough to play European basketball, because you go to a country and you're away from your family. A lot of places, they might not even speak your language. The
Mhm.
crazy thing, I talk to guys now is like, when I started, like, get the communication wasn't there. Like you think about like phone calls, like even before me a little bit, like some people before my time had to go to like payphones and stuff to
Yeah,
get
which
to,
is crazy to
which
think
is the
about.
craziest thing
Yeah.
to think about. Like for me, it's like, okay, I was still able to like Skype and stuff, like, do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now like everything's so accessible.
It's
You got
so easy.
FaceTime, you
Yeah.
got, you know, and even thinking about like accessibility now too is like, I remember my first season, I had to like send out like physical DVDs, like to actual agents. And now, like, isn't that the craziest
That's crazy
thing?
because now
Like,
you just send a YouTube link
you
or
just send a
something.
YouTube. So the
Yeah.
access to like players is way easier. But yeah, like I mean, definitely the isolation, the mental, like, especially when you go through like a tough time when you're overseas. Cause I feel like when you're playing basketball overseas, you're really treated like a commodity. You're there,
Right. You're
you're a number.
expensible, right? Almost to
You're
them.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You're there, and if you don't play well, they're gonna cut you, or they're gonna look for ways to get rid of you, right?
Right.
And that means, fans will be after you. They'll be talking shit about you. They'll be, they really come after you. So uh, they treat you well if you play well, but if you don't play well,
Crazy.
it's the opposite.
It's a
So
cold world over there.
it is, it is. So that's why I always say like stay kind of in the middle. Don't get too high when you play well. Don't get too low when you play bad.
Right.
Just try to stay in the middle, because otherwise you'll drive yourself crazy, and mentally you'll check out.
The mental side of the game is obviously a huge part for so many athletes. Even I've heard some guys on our trip just mention that, right?
Yeah.
How they struggle with that when they go overseas. Is there anything you did to counterbalance that or counteract that to like get through it in those tough situations?
Yeah, you know what? It's more of just perspective for me. Like I always try to keep my mindset like, this is something that you love doing. Uh Always have the bigger picture behind you. You have your family. Like I would think about this as like if something bad were to happen, you weren't absolutely feeling this, you can always go home. Like there's nobody holding you. Like you're not in jail. Like
Right.
you chose to be here. And now because you're in a situation that you may not like, or it may be a tough situation, I think it teaches you a lot about yourself. And, adversity is good for all of us. I think it
It
teaches you
is.
about, character and true character. So I would say, when things are great, everybody's happy. But when things aren't, it's like, how are you moving through that?
Yeah.
So basketball has like honestly been one like the biggest for me. It's been like one of the biggest life lessons for me, and just in general, like it's helped me with so much in how to cope with stress, how to cope with relationships, just
It,
everything in general.
I
Like
always
it's
tell people it's crazy how much basketball can teach you.
yeah,
And it's crazy how much people think that, as a basketball player, for example, oh, what's this guy doing? You're not learning anything. You're not doing anything with your life. But actually, like, you're getting so many life lessons along the way.
crazy.
And I always say, like, man, I'm a huge proponent of sport. Like, I obviously, just like you just had
Yeah,
a son.
yeah,
He's going to play sports. I can only imagine and
for
assume,
sure.
right? But we
Yeah,
understand it from a different level because we did it.
yeah,
We know what you can learn. We know how it can help you. It's not just about, being a pro athlete,
yeah,
right?
totally. Like because I look at sport as like everything like supercharged. Like the day to day, you may have an interaction with someone, and it's like, all right, you know what, like let's move on with this,
Yeah.
right? With sports, it's like everything is like high intensity, so the emotions are super high, and when you're dealing with people, emotions can get super high. It's like it teaches you in how to kind of you know keep your temper, keep your calm. Because there was times when I was younger where there were things would happen and I would react a certain way,
Of
and
course.
and
Yeah.
as I got older, I'm like, you know what, this really isn't that like. What's it always brings me back now. It's like, well, what's the big picture at the end of the like? What are we trying to do? What's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish? And I always talk about this like control what you can control, and if you can't control, forget about it. Like
Walk away. Yeah. That makes sense.
because if you can't control something, you're literally just going to drive yourself crazy thinking about something that you have no control over,
Yeah.
right? And for me, it's like it's not worth my my mental peace. And I just go with it, and I'm like, and if I can't control it, I always talk to myself. I always have these dialogues with myself, like what is bothering me, and what can I do to fix it? If I can't fix it, then hey, it is what it is.
I
Move
like it
on.
because I've seen so many guys spin in circles,
Yeah,
trying to get through that stuff. So that's a really good key. I probably know the answer to this, but obviously, like, sports and everything it taught you.
hmm
Now you're a real estate agent. I basically just think you're an entrepreneur because that to me is what you're
yeah.
doing. Um, how is sport and basketball affected you in that realm of your life now?
Man, it's huge. Honestly, it's everything. I tell people all the time. when I moved from the sports world to real estate, it was more just the soft skills that carry over are just crazy. Because now you deal with now I deal with people again in high emotional situations when with business decisions that with houses
Yeah,
that are worth
and with lots of
potentially
money on the line.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So you're talking dealing with people's livelihoods, right, and millions of dollars on the line. So yeah, they get emotionally charged. So, but the only thing is, it's different because now what I learned in basketball is I'm able to apply that and stay kind of, in that level because when these situations happen, you don't want to be riding that emotional roller coaster. And I think it really
exactly.
helps to kind of, bring you back to square one and say, hey, like, this is what we need to do. And it allows you to make decisions a lot easier. So yeah, definitely like the soft skills of like, time management, being able to do things on your own. And that's one thing with basketball that like if you want to be good at something, like you got to put in the work, right? And it's the same
Absolutely.
thing. It's the same thing
There's
with
no shortcut.
being an entrepreneur. Is like you just have to do different things to get to where you want to, but you got to find what's going to make you excel as an entrepreneur, as a real whatever it is that you're doing,
Hmm.
right? So
And you just recently had a son.
yeah,
So obviously, congratulations again.
thank
It's
you.
crazy because I actually do remember like when all that happened. So I guess quick stories. Like last year, you came to play for India Rising. Last year was
Yeah,
crazy for us, right? With the summer and everything going
yeah.
on. Your son was literally, I think, just born. Honestly, probably the same day or the night before. I think,
He
and
was
you would
born. He was born a couple of days before, but I was in the hospital for a couple of days, so
right.
we stayed. Like, yeah, it was a very quick turnaround.
Basically, his son was born. In my opinion, he flies down literally the next day to meet us in Toronto for whatever, a couple days of training camp, and then we go play on ESPN. That was an incredible story in itself. And now it's funny
Yeah,
because now you just posted pictures. and he just had his like 1 year birthday.
1 year
And I'm like,
birthday.
oh man, this is crazy. Like,
Yeah, time flies.
time flies.
Yeah.
So what's that experience been like for you?
It's been amazing. Honestly, it's it's been the biggest blessing of my life. Um, even last year, like everything was just crazy. Like I remember, yeah, like it was the day after I left the hospital, came home, and then I had left the day after, which is crazy. And shout out to my wife Sarah for being able
Seriously, a
to.
wife of the century.
Yeah, she held it down. But yeah, like this, it really, like again, I keep talking about perspective, but it really does. Like it's just another life chapter for me, and having that
Yeah.
child in your life that this person, you look at this person, this little baby who's just ready to be molded for this
Yeah,
world.
for this crazy world.
Yeah, and you're responsible for doing the best of your ability to teach whatever values, morals that you've learned and your parents have taught you, and do the best of your ability to have them excel and give them the tools to excel in life. Because you can't coddle your kids as they get older, but I mean, at
Right.
this age, obviously, you got to do
Yeah.
everything
You have
for them,
to. Yeah.
right? But yeah, it just changes your perspective. Like for me, like time has become the most precious thing in the world now because I have a certain amount of hours in a day, and I have to be so efficient with that time now. And
Right.
it's
Even
become
more. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, yeah. And of course, everybody's got to be efficient with their time, but more so now, it's because like you have just limited time to do what you want to do as an individual with your work or whatever your passions are. But then also you got to spend time with your family, your son, and
Yeah.
you want to have this. This is a
Yeah.
responsibility that you can't just neglect.
And
Right?
obviously you want to be there because I
Of course.
assume like, every minute not there is just like you don't know what
Yeah.
you're missing. It's just all part of the
Totally. And even like
yeah.
being here, like, you every day, like I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, man, I really like, you know, it's crazy like how much you can miss somebody,
Yeah. It's
and
crazy, right?
it's a different type of feeling. Obviously, you
Yeah.
miss your family or your wife, your whoever it is that's important in your life. But this is new to me because
Yeah.
we it's hard to explain having a son and
Well, hopefully next year, obviously I'm assuming you're gonna be with us and coming back. Like maybe they'll be able to come out next year.
yeah,
Maybe it'll be in a cooler city.
yeah,
No
yeah,
disrespect, and then like they can all come out and enjoy. Because I,
100%.
I feel like that's also like a cool part of it.
Yeah.
Is does he already have like a small basketball in his hands and stuff?
You know
Or
what? I had him hold one the other day,
yeah,
and like a very very tiny one. He just throws things around.
yeah. Of course he doesn't know,
I
but
had a little hoop, like a tiny little hoop, and
yeah.
I just had picked him up trying to make him dunk the ball. He finally got it in
Get those
because
emotions
yeah,
down.
just get the muscle memory going early age. But yeah, no, I definitely want to put a hoop basketball in his hands at a
Yeah.
young age. I mean, at the end of the day, if he chooses to do something else, then it is what it is.
If
But
let's just hypothetical, if he starts to love basketball, he plays it, junior high school. Like, would you be like that dad who all of a sudden is the head coach of the AAU team and
I don't know, man. That's yeah. I see what you mean with that though. But like, there's definitely like I want to be able to shed as much knowledge as I can naturally on to him. But I always find like sometimes the dads who coach their son that played also could also be a negative thing too. Like I've seen it go
I've
both
seen that. I've
ways.
seen both sides. That's
Yeah,
why I was
yeah,
curious. Yeah.
yeah. Because some guys, like honestly, like they're great, but it's different when it's your son and you're coaching your son, right? Like,
Because you just want it bad. I feel like you're gonna
yeah,
want
yeah.
it to be good.
But I don't want to be the guy who like lives vicariously through my son
Yeah.
either. Like you want to let them have their life and choose what they want to
Yeah.
do. But you know what, you want to facilitate whatever they need, and hopefully I can provide that. And if he does play basketball and he wants to play basketball and he wants to pursue it, then I'll be
You'll be
100%,
supporting. Yeah.
110% in, and I'll be supporting everything that he wants.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Let's transition a little bit to the brown baller side. Obviously, you've seen from last year to now a lot of growth, a lot of things have changed. I like asking this question, like, what do you see us building, like with brown ballers? Like, what are you seeing when you go on social media or just from people talking, even just talking to Jen and the sponsors? Like,
Mhm.
what are you seeing?
For me, it's a platform. I mean, that's really what it is. Like, I think, growing up, like I just look back at like when I was, in high school or junior high. I think growing up and seeing somebody do something with basketball as an Indian athlete, it's just so much more inspirational in the sense that I can really relate. I didn't
Right.
like I didn't have that growing up. So that platform is like, hey, like this person has a really good story. Let's bring them up, right? And one of the things I like our culture is really bad at is that bringing each other down. Like I find that sometimes where it's like a negative
So, yeah,
connotation where it's
that's
like,
a bad part of the culture.
yeah. And I don't, to be honest, I don't know where that comes from, but it's there. And I've seen it over and over again. Like we talk about it. It's like, for whatever reason, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. There's a lot of there's a lot of unity that comes along with it. But yeah, there's just, you want to see each other lift each other up. Like if I see a kid that's like really good at basketball, I would love to see a kid potentially play in the NBA one day.
Exactly.
It could be like 5 years from now. And it would be so cool for that kid to be like, hey, like I used to watch you guys do what you did. And it inspired me to pick up a basketball or pick up a basketball and pursue it to a level where I didn't think it was possible. To see guys playing at a high level, but also like, you know what, be successful outside of basketball. I think that's huge too, right? Because what I find with like professional basketball too is that, sometimes guys just get so like, they get tunnel vision. They're just like, no, I'm going to play basketball.
And that's it. Yeah.
What happens? Then you get hurt. And then like, you don't have any other segue to kind of go into, right? Like it's just really, it's unfortunate that that's how it is sometimes, but like, I just want to teach, the young guys to say, and the young girls coming up, there's been some great
There's
girls.
a lot of good talent.
Yeah. Like
in Vancouver, I was blown away.
Yeah.
Seeing all those teams and those girls, like really good.
So you want to see that now. And like, that's the whole push on the other side is that, in our culture, especially like back in the day, girls were not pushed at all to play sports. It was almost like a negative thing.
Yeah.
If you're playing sports, like, what are you doing? Right. Yeah. So I think we got to keep continuing. And that's what it is. It's like, just keep pushing that agenda and keep pushing it forward. So for me, it's like it's a movement. It's a huge, like it's a platform, but it's also a movement of like, generations to come.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's going to be exciting to keep building this out, like I said, keep showcasing the stories. Like I said,
yeah.
I think I said this yesterday in our chat, but it's like your sons in 10 years, like these guys will have these opportunities, these platforms. Yeah. Hopefully by then we'll have so many opportunities for these players to play on and just give them those opportunities they wouldn't have had, or the exposure maybe they wouldn't get from somewhere else. Right.
Yeah.
Or the mentorship from guys like you and Gokul and everyone else who like, I feel like would honestly love to give back, and help them, like you said with Arian, and help them come up properly so they can avoid some of the mistakes you made.
Totally. And that's what it's about. Like at the end of the day, like there's going to be more now. I mean, we're already seeing it. Like I told you, like when I started barely saw any, like now we have a group of guys that are playing, and there's multiple guys playing overseas, multiple guys getting looks. Like, so we're just going to continue. It's just going to continue to grow. But if we don't create opportunities for them, they're not going to have anywhere to go. So that platform is very important for, someone with elite talent to be like, hey, I'm playing, I have an opportunity to play after, university or whatever it is that they're playing.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, being Indian, being, representative of that culture, I think it's very important to highlight that. It's crazy when you're younger, you don't think about that. Like I was almost embarrassed.
Of course not. Yeah.
Going to school, like telling like what I had for lunch and stuff like that. Like, different.
It's so different.
Now, man, I embrace it. Like I love this. Like that's my, that's my culture. Like I was, my real name is actually Raj Verinder.
Yeah. And it's funny because I always forget, but when the TBT posted, they also did that. I'm like, wait, hold on. Who?
My legal name, right? Yeah. I was so embarrassed of that name when I was growing up as a kid. Cause like, you get made fun of as a kid.
Of course.
And now I just like, I embrace everything about my culture. Like my grandpa gave me that name. And it was like, it's just something that like, you stick with. And as you get older, you're like, you know what? Every kid growing up should really embrace their culture. And it doesn't have to be Indian culture, any culture.
Any culture. Yeah.
That's the beauty of like our diversity that we have. Yeah. We don't need to all be the same. It's actually super. And we talked about this the other day, is like, what's so cool about our team is like everybody's story is so different. We're all Indian.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to like learn about that, because you can actually like get inspired by somebody else. Like I talked to example, for example, I talked to Sai, and like his story is so incredible too. Like, him being a orthopedic surgeon now, like to have that and still play basketball at a high level, you can take, things from everybody. You can always learn, and you always got to keep that growth mindset, right?
Yeah, we have very similar thoughts on all this stuff, so it's great.
Yeah.
I also grew up very similar to that, where like I was very embarrassed, and I like fully embrace it, man, because it's like a beautiful culture that we have.
Yeah.
And I think it's just funny because we grow up around those cliques or those groups,
Yeah.
where they make you feel like, yo, your name's crazy. You're like, why are you brown? But now it's like, yo, like we gotta own this.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like all those kids can also see that we've owned, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Because it goes
Yeah,
back down.
totally.
On the Brown Baller side and the India Rising side, we kind of talked about this a little bit. You know, you have this role with us, director of basketball ops. Basically,
Yeah.
you're the guy holding it down for us with many things, but player relationships and things behind the scenes that basically nobody will probably really ever know or see.
Yeah.
Right. But those are the important things. And we've experienced that this week where you've truly helped us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think like next year you'll come back and be in a different role with the team?
You know what? It's hard to say. Like right now, like obviously we're in like the midst of it all, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, after all this is done, you just got to step back and you got to self-reflect too. You got to see like, what can you do better? Because at the end of the day, like I always look at it as like, you got to provide value. And if you're not providing value, then what do you do? Like, so you got to see like how you're providing value. What's the best way that I can help, you know, take this to the next level or help, you know, the movement and whatever it is that I think is necessary. And then we always have these conversations is like, how can we do this together? Because you can't just do it just by yourself.
It's
right?
impossible.
It's all, you know, just like teams, like they have organizations and like, you know, you have the coaching staff, you have the players, but then there's so many people behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've seen it this week is like, there's so many people. And for me, that's why I really respect people behind the scenes. Like, you know, the photographers, the cameraman, like treat everybody like they're the most important person because they really are like the people behind the scenes. Like they do so much that like, you know, the highlights are always on the players, right?
Yeah.
And obviously like the coaching staff and like, you know, they take all the pressure too. And they take a lot of the, you know, the praise as well too. But I think it's important to like, you know, come together as a community and say, hey, let's like, there's so much to look at. And yeah, to answer your question is, you know, I would definitely, you know, continue. I would want to be a part of this movement going forward and just continue to help wherever I can.
Absolutely. I guess what I was trying to poke you at was like, how, you know, will it be as a player role or is it undecided as of next year?
Honestly, I don't know. Yeah. Like if you're asking me that question, yeah, that's tough to say, man. Like we know, like I rolled my ankle the other day in practice. That's just been a pain to deal with. Like, you know, I'm 35, turning 36 this year. You know, it's coming to that point where like you asked about the itch. Yeah. You know, the competitive fire in me always like, man, like I can play. Like I always feel like I can still play.
Of course.
But there'll be a time that comes where, you know, I have to just know that myself, like I might not be playing at the highest level. And for me, it's like this too. I don't want to be that guy that continues to play where I'm not, you know, maybe taking an opportunity away from a younger guy. You know, I'm kind of thinking about that perspective now is like, okay, as you get older, it's like, there's a lot of these good young talents and I want them to be able to showcase their talent. Like I've done what I've done. Like I have nothing left to prove. I just play because I love the game.
You just love it, man. That's it.
But I also want to, you know, I want to help us win. So if I can help us win by playing, then great. But you know, if I can't do the same, like I'm obviously not the same player as I was as I get older. And obviously I'm not playing full time. I'm not playing professionally anymore. But yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I definitely want to give, you know, other people opportunities as well too.
This is the last thing for me right now is like, I think it's your WhatsApp picture or something, but there's that picture of you, like you had crazy bounce. I don't know. I don't think people actually probably never really experienced it. Cause like that would have been this. Yeah. I don't know if there's too much footage. You know what I mean? Social media is different now.
For sure.
If you were now, you would have had a mixtape out going viral probably. You know what I mean? But like there was a picture, I think you were jumping over a car or
motorcycle.
A motorcycle.
Yeah.
Your bounce was crazy, right?
Yeah. I had some pretty good bounce. Like back in the day when I was younger. Yeah, I would say like, you know, I could get up with the best.
Yeah, man, that picture's crazy. Not just like, I'm assuming like people always say this, like, yo, like brown people, we have bad genes, genetics. Like we can't ever have bounce, we can't dunk, but like there's obviously so many great athletes that we actually have right now.
Yeah,
they can do that.
Look at Aryan right now, man.
With Aryan, with you, was it just a classic workouts? Like, was it just like squats and lunges and the basics?
Yeah, you know what? I did a lot. Do you remember that program called Air Alert?
It's crazy. I was hoping you weren't going to say that.
But like, you know, I didn't do it like to full. But I'm not saying that was the program that I used.
Yeah.
I remember I bought all the shoes and stuff like
Everybody
that.
Bought
we did like, you know, the high
they
high
had
toes,
to have made
right?
100 million at least. Like, they had to.
Yeah. I mean, I never used it the way, you know, it was intended to use. But like my mentality at a young age, I remember junior high, I was all about like, man, I want to dunk. So like grade 7, like I remember grade 8, like we would just always like try to touch the rim, backboard, touch the
slaps,
rim, you know, try to throw an alley-oop, just like literally every day. So I think it was more just like, me just like really just trying to like just practice and trying to dunk. Later on, I would say it was more me doing like lifts that really helped kind of, you know, take away. I had tendonitis in my knee for like 5 years, like throughout the university career.
Really?
It was terrible. Like both my knees were like,
they would have been aching.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
it was tough. Like I remember waking up in the morning sometimes, like I couldn't go down. Going down the stairs was like the most painful thing. I had one of my trainers actually in university, Ken Wong. He really helped me get rid of my knee pain. Like we loaded up on like squats. Like we would be doing like heavy lifting to the point where I was like my 1 rep max was like crazy, but like I spent like 20-30 minutes just doing a set of squats.
A
couple of sets of squats. So yeah, like I did a lot of weight training. I still incorporate a lot of weight training in my workouts to keep me kind of fresh. But yeah, like I think that has a little bit to do with like genetics as well too. Obviously,
yeah, definitely.
You know, it's not always you're just gonna jump, right? But it's a combination of both, right? Putting in that work.
Well, I'm gonna give you the mic to end off on something first, but I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Anytime.
You're literally, you already know this. You're part of the team, part of the family. We're gonna be here doing this stuff for a long time. Always appreciate your time, but give you the mic one more time just to give any piece of advice, anything. Even though you gave a lot of gems, just anything to those kids watching right now, whether it's pro basketball, whether it's entrepreneur, just anything in life, like something they can focus on or something they should do.
Yeah, like honestly, the way I look at it, and I tell a lot of the kids, the youth growing up now, is that, you know, the way we do anything is the way we do everything, right? So, you know, we always talk about like, oh, practice hard so you can play hard, but that applies to like everything in life. Like, don't take shortcuts. Like, if you're gonna do things, just do it the right way. You know, you're gonna go to school, treat it the same way, because I just feel like life goes really fast and you never know who's watching. I always say, you know, there may be an opportunity right in front of your face.
Right.
And that person may be judging you as a person at that point. Just, you know, be yourself, but like train yourself to be that guy that like, I'm not taking shortcuts. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I don't want to do this because, you know, so-and-so, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just treat everything like you're training. Like for me, basketball wise, like, man, like it was like, if I'm doing this, this is game speed, and I'm going to treat everything.
And you're focused on that, right? It's like that dedicated, your focused practice.
Exactly.
You're on your phone and all.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the same thing with like, you know, relationships that we have in our life. Very important. Like treat them like, you know, you really want to invest in them, right? And that's what I really put that into perspective. Is like, yeah, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. You're not going to just flip a switch. We talk about that with practices. Like, man, you're not going to just have a light practice and all of a sudden, boom, you're going to turn the lights on and you're going to be some great player. Like, that's just not how it works. That's not how life works. So yeah, in short, that's kind of what I would say. I think that's really one of the most important things that I always try to stick to. I mean, obviously you can talk about a lot of different things, but I think it's really good to keep things simple and to keep things in perspective. Yeah, that's what I would say.
I love it, man. I appreciate you, and let's go get this dub.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, I appreciate you, man.